Did you know that not all Linux YouTubers use open source? Just for the record, this is a friendly dunk and I'm not casting aspersions or judgment on anyone. I might be laughing at you though. Over the years, I've seen a lot of YouTubers that cover Linux material. There's DistroTube. There's Brodie. In Spanish, there's a guy by the name of Satiel, who's a good friend of mine. There are so many Linux YouTubers out there, I can't even keep track of them. And one of the things is they have this thing. They all have this one thing in common. They don't actually, some of those people don't actually use open source software. DT, he uses free and open source software. I think probably Brodie does, but Brodie might be using Davinci Resolve these days, so I'm not sure. It's a long way to just say that I'm a big fan of some of these people, but when you have a channel that talks about open source software, then you got to use the industry standard when it comes to open source. And when people edit their videos with things like Davinci Resolve, or even worse, like Adobe Premiere, there's a couple of Linux YouTubers I know for a fact use Adobe Premiere. Here is a prominent Linux channel. This is Destination Linux, and this is Michael. I think it's Tunnel. He's going by Michael Tons right now. I've met him a couple of times. He's a nice person, so don't think that this is anything other than a friendly dunk, but he has this ad today on Discord. Hey everyone, I'm looking for it to find a video editor or two for my channel. If you're reading this and are interested in being an editor for me, then here are some things you should know. It's a paid role, blah, blah, blah. And there's that. And then we'll start slowly, but the goal is start releasing multiple videos every week. And he goes on to say, editing on Linux is encouraged but not required. You have a Linux channel, but editing on Linux is not a requirement? Interesting. However, Davinci Resolve is required for editing. I use Davinci Resolve. The last time I checked, Davinci Resolve is proprietary. So anyone who edits for me needs to use this. No other digital editing software will be considered at this time. Yes, I love Kdenlive too, but it's not quite there yet. What do you mean not quite there yet? I mean, honestly, Kdenlive is like 1 year behind Davinci Resolve. It's so stupid. Like what? You couldn't handle what Davinci Resolve was working with a year ago? And the logic makes no sense. But whatever, this is his preference, right? Your location doesn't matter to me, but it might to whatever governments are involved, so we'll have to figure that one out. Again, I know Michael personally. I've met him on the Linux Saloon a couple of times. And here's what I think about it, all right? Just coming from the hip, right? Do I agree very much with his idea of open source software and Linux and like what his emphasis is? No, I don't. However, if I needed like some context about Ubuntu, Fedora, OpenSUSE, whatever the distro is, and I wanted a little extra information, this guy is a wealth of information, so I always value his input, even though I largely disagree with him on virtually everything. Let's go to Pat's Cyber Chronicles. Now, I follow this guy. I think he's a really, really knowledgeable person in security. It seems like he's niched down, but the guy's a Windows user. However, this is a little different because he does have a niche in security. It isn't precise. It isn't just Linux. And I think there's a big difference. Michael, he talks purely about open source software and Linux. Pat, he's talking about security. over all platforms. And so I think he gets a little bit of a pass, even though I chuckle at him when I find out that he uses an iPad to, edit his thumbnails and stuff. I would also probably criticize the Linux cast, just like I criticize Michael here, because you should be using open source software whenever possible, especially if you have a channel dedicated to that very subject. There's another channel that I like a lot, Christian with linkarzu, right? He's a Mac user, okay? But he covers a lot of open source topics, has a lot of Linux YouTubers on his channel. He interviews a lot of people, but I think it's different. Why? Because he never actually said, this is what my channel is about. So what do you guys think? If you have a channel dedicated to Linux and open source software, should you be using open source software? There's just one issue that I haven't mentioned yet, and that is just, I have to be transparent here when I say that most of us use proprietary software of some sort, right? Like, for example, say we want our Wi-Fi to work or our graphics card to work. We usually, at least some of us Linux YouTubers, use the proprietary drivers to make it work. However, the only proprietary driver that I know of that I might be using would be for my Wi-Fi. I actually use the Novu graphics card. I think it's great. I think it's just as good as the proprietary one, so I use it. If you'd like to see why boomers don't really like the new GNOME desktop, just check out that video here. And I also want to thank these amazing people right here, and I'll see you later, nerds. Ciao.